Mickey's been a video game character for quite a while, but rather spend his time in arcades, he spent most of his days in cartoons. During his life, he was most active on the Sega Genesis, having over 5 games on just that one console. Disney was associated with high-quality games too, such as DuckTales and Quackshot, so expectations were high for most Disney-related games. Because of Mickey's success, Disney licensed him out to several different developers on Sega, but all the games were drastically different from each other because of this. Some being downright horrible, but others were fairly well made, so let's work our way up by starting at the worst. Fantasia was a mess. The story goes that Mickey's music notes were stolen somehow and he has to get them back. Basically, you go through scenes in the movie finding hidden music notes spread around the level to reassemble sheet music for the orchestra to play. The only ones I could find were the ones I accidentally ran into, and I only saw this one after I recorded this. Yup, that's a music note, and you need all of them or you can't go to the next level. The game had average graphics and the concept was simple enough, but the game suffered from many problems. During the game, you'll hear some of the worst reproductions of the music performed in Fantasia ever. But the music is the least of your problems. Mickey has 2 forms of attack, jumping and using magic. Magic runs out quickly though, so it's not really possible to form a strategy with it. So, you'll shortly be left with only one option, and that is to jump on your enemies. For some reason, the developers decided that you would have to hold down on the D-pad in order to hurt your enemies. This was completely unnecessary and becomes really annoying, mainly because jumping on an enemy normally and using it in the attack form have the same exact animation. But all of these things are overshadowed by one problem, and that is everything has delay. You are constantly surrounded by enemies in this game, and it requires split-second reactions to evade them, so even if you're able to press the button in time, you'll still take damage because of the delay and end up dying very quick. This is just the worst Mickey game I've ever played, and I wouldn't doubt that it's the worst ever created. Thankfully, none of the other Mickey games are this poorly made. This is Mickey's ultimate challenge, but there's not much to be said about this one. Mickey falls asleep and he ends up in a castle where he plays various puzzle games. Some of the games include matching pictures and moving potions, but none of it's really that funny and it gets repetitive quick. The music's almost as bad as Fantasia's. And the controls are limited to just walking and jumping, but you only use them to get to a different minigame. Since the game's target audience was younger kids, I didn't really expect much out of it, but that's about as deep as this game gets. So let's move on to something that's actually a decent game. In Castle of Illusion, you must rescue Minnie from the Wicked Queen from Snow White, Miserable, before she steals her beauty. It's a platform that performs fairly well, the controls are tight, and aside from the intro music, it has a pretty good soundtrack. You can either throw objects you find in the level to kill your enemies, or you can use a much stronger jumping attack. You have to tap jump twice or tap down the D-pad once you're in the air to do damage with your jump, but unlike Fantasia, you don't have to hold the button down and your animation changes when you do this, so you know when you're going in for a hit. The boss fights are entertaining, although they can be very easy at times, I still enjoyed them. Most of the levels have a very cool design. Each level has its own independent setting completely different from the last, so it never gets boring. I especially thought the third level looked really cool. The difficulty isn't so bad, but there are a few minor issues I have. When you use Mickey's throwing attack, he comes to a complete halt, and it takes him about a second for him to actually throw, so you could end up getting hit if you're too close. But when you jump, there's no delay at all. Also, Mickey's pace is a little slow, but this is another situation where jumping is superior because you move faster when you jump. Because of this, I pretty much spent the whole game jumping around. Overall, the game's not so bad, and I had a lot of fun playing it, but some may not like it and some may because of its simplicity. But Mickey had 2 Illusion games on the Sega Genesis. Although they were both created by Sega of Japan, the gameplay of the 2 share little in common. This is World of Illusion. The story goes that Mickey and Donald were performing a magic act, that they were sucked into an alternate dimension with the voice telling them they can only leave once they prove their magical abilities. This is pretty much the explanation of why you use a magic cape as your weapon instead of using a jumping attack. The game looks similar to Castle of Illusion, even using some of the same settings for the levels, such as the Candyland. But that's as far as the similarities go, although I enjoyed the overall setting and the levels never became too repetitive. Even if they weren't as original as Castle of Illusion, they kept the environments fresh throughout the game. Although the instrumentals have improved, I think the music from Castle of Illusion was a little catchier than this one. The controls are pretty solid, and the pace was picked up a good deal from the last game because a run button was added. But I'd recommend changing the default controls, because the way they have it set up makes it very awkward to run and jump at the same time. Because with A being run and C being jump, you need to stop running in order to jump, which can be annoying if you have a nice flow going. To change things up from your average platformer, this game takes away the ability to jump on your enemies and replaces it with a magic cape, but I have a small gripe with this. It's slow. Too slow. It takes about a second to attack, and while attacking you can't move, so you'll be standing still a good amount of time, especially when there's more than 2 enemies coming at you. And since there's no quicker alternative, you're forced to fight this way. But the best part of this game, and what makes it better than Castle of Illusion, is the multiplayer. When choosing the 2-player option from the game, it changes a good deal from the single-player mode. It even adds completely different levels than if you were playing alone. It forces players to work together in order to progress and adds special actions such as pulling your partner through a small opening or dropping rope for your partner to climb. Without this, I don't think the game would be nearly as fun. World of Illusion has infinite continues too, so if you're playing with someone less experienced than you, then you don't have to worry about getting a game over. My only problem with the multiplayer is that if you get hit by your friend, you end up getting twisted up and become immobile for a few seconds. This wouldn't be such a problem, but attacking takes up such a large portion of the screen you'll end up hitting each other a lot. So it ends up slowing down the game a good amount, but still, it's worth picking the multiplayer over the single player. But the game's not hard to begin with, so this shouldn't mess you up too much. Now, there was one more multiplayer Mickey game on Sega. And that would be the Great Circus Mystery. In this game, someone has ruined the circus, and Mickey and Minnie are on a quest to find out who did it. So throughout the game, you'll be given new costumes that give the player a different ability such as climbing or shooting. And sometimes a certain costume will be necessary in order to get through a level. This was a really good idea, and I only wish that there are more costumes to change into because some hardly become necessary during later levels of the game. Yes, vacuuming suit, that means you. The levels are drawn very vibrantly, making every detail really stick out. And all the enemies have a cartoony look to them, and the bosses look great. But where this game really shines is the multiplayer. And although it doesn't change the game as World of Illusion did, it's still a great experience. But there was one thing that was kind of a problem. When you pick 2-player mode, you're given a choice to either pick Mickey or Minnie. And no one really wanted to be Minnie, especially as a kid, everyone that I played with wanted to be Mickey. And sometimes people wouldn't even play with me if they had to be Minnie, which makes me wish they put Donald as a playable character too or something. But this isn't an actual flaw, so getting back on track, the game is actually very easy. Especially on co-op, because the game isn't altered in any way when you pick 2 players, so it's just as easy as it is on 1 player. The game's pretty short too. I'd probably say it's the easiest Mickey game on Sega, but that's one of the reasons why I think the game's so fun. Now, there's one more Mickey game on Sega, but I like it so much, I think it deserves its own video with a full review. So, that's the end of this video. Thanks for watching, and until next time when we take a look at Mickey Mania.